So the attack disk is really good at figuring out how to get a solution, but it's a little bit. A lot of people map it on the map in order to do it, and you can still do that even with the attack disk, but it's actually a lot faster with the attack disk than it would otherwise be. So if we go to the attack disk, and I'm actually gonna uncheck this because this is important. So if with this check, then it follows my ship, my boat, but in the beginning we were actually at 315 degrees, right? So our first measurements are all based on that, not based on our final angle. So I'm also going to ask our navigator to plot our current position because we move slightly, and so that changes things up a bit. I wonder, can I move this at all? Nope, I cannot. Okay, so first off, we were at 315 degrees, and we spotted them at 300 degrees. So we were right at 300 degrees. So I'm actually going to spin this really quickly to make sure I've got it accurately. And then I can grab this little wing of it over here and move it till it lines up. Okay, then we'll move this back to where it's supposed to be. So we were at 300 degrees, and we spotted them with an angle on bow of 16 degrees. So there's those little green numbers. This is okay, first off, this is our periscope, and this is their ship. So depending on how they were when we saw them. So when we saw them, they had an angle on the bow of 16 degrees. So right here, 16 degrees. So we put that there, and that tells us that their true bearing was 60 degrees. Now, I actually had written down 62 degrees, but it looks like based on those, it's actually 60 degrees. So let's take those numbers. First off, our bearing. I'm going to have to scroll in to even be able to tell a difference between these two. So our first bearing was 315 degrees. So we were going off somewhere like this. The nice thing is we don't even have to write that down. We don't have to mark that. What we need to know is that we spotted them. Oh, let me get the other number. We spotted them at 300 degrees, which is 255 degrees true bearing. Okay, is that right? 200. Yeah. Okay, so we spotted them at 255 degrees. So if we grab this and we shoot it off in that direction, we're going to say 200. Okay, just a sec. Let me make sure that's right, because that seems wrong. Okay, yes, we spotted them at 255. Okay. And they were traveling at 60. We want to go farther out than that, but we'll go ahead and start with a compass right here, and we know that when we first spotted them, they were at 5,100 meters. So we'll drag this out to 5,100 meters, scroll out again, and then we'll grab this, and we're dragging that to 255 degrees. Okay, so that was their initial bearing. If we look off everything we have, oh yeah, they were 255 is where we saw them. Okay, so that means when we first spotted them, they were right here, right? So that was their location, and they were moving. So I'm just gonna erase this, and I'll leave that for now, I think. And they were moving at a true bearing of 60 degrees. Might have been 61, but probably 60. Okay, so we're going to go here, and we need to mark it up that way somewhere. I'm actually going to zoom in over here and see if I can get it closer to their mark. And zoom out, grab this. So that was their initial bearing, more or less, right? And so then we got them heading that direction. So what we did at that point is we then turned our ship and we ended up in this new direction, and we popped back up from this new direction and we did a new reading. Now I'm just gonna turn this, I guess. So we ended up at 329 degrees, which is right there. I could even just mark that to get it in the right place. And when we popped back up after our 3 or 4 minutes of turning, we looked and we saw them at 329 degrees. So I'm going to use this U-boat right here to get it a little more accurately and say, okay, match that line, and then I'll move the U-boat back. Oh, I forgot to say, the reason we turned to 329 is because that's what it would take to intercept, and maybe I should have drawn that really quickly. So we wanted to do a 90-degree intercept course. So if we take their bearing and we draw back like that, nope, not a compass, we want a protractor, and we draw back like this, and then do a 90, which is there, we notice that in order to get to that, we have to be facing 329, 330 degrees. So that's what we were trying to do, so we turned in that direction. Okay, so now we pull back up that attack disc. We looked at 329 degrees and we saw them, and we at the time were 25 degrees angle on the bow. So if they looked off their ship to see us, we would be at 25 degrees. Which meant at that point they were traveling I'm doing something weird here because it's not adding up. So we were facing here. Oh, but we were looking at 329 degrees angle on our bow. Not, oh, okay, I'm pointing at that. Oh, that's right. That's all right. Okay, so 329, and then they were going over here. I'm wondering why it's so weird, because unless they really change their course, that's not the way it's going to work out. Okay, so we were looking at 329 degrees. Oh, no, we turned to 329 degrees. I didn't write down what... Oh, target bearing 300 degrees. Okay, I wrote it. I was looking wrong. So their target bearing was actually 300 degrees. I wrote it down wrong, or I was looking at the wrong number on my paper. Okay, so target bearing 300 degrees, and then we were 25 degrees angle on their bow, which puts them traveling at 63 degrees. But for a mapping purpose, first off, we need to say, okay, we were looking at 300 degrees, which is a 268 degree true bearing. So when we saw them again, they were at, first off, let's grab this. Drag that into right there. And then they were only at 2150 degrees. Or 2150 meters, not degrees. 2150 meters. So they'd come in a long way. And angle on, and true angle was 268. So we'll come over here and we'll drag this up. I'm gonna get in really close. 268. Okay, so at that point they were right here. Now the interesting thing is, as we look, we're not 100% accurate here unless they changed course, right? Like, all of these measurements were just a little bit off. And in a minute, I'm actually going to show why. But again, they were close enough to get a firing solution and hit with what should have been 3 torpedoes and ended up being just 2. Should have been 4, or should have been all 3, but 1 was a dud and 1 missed because we went under it. So we had them going that way, and then if we look at where we're pointing, which is, I'm gonna have to draw it like here. If we bring this up to our point, and we're currently pointing at 330 degrees, and then we grab a protractor and draw it that way, we're at basically 90 degrees of what their course would be, and we had a shot of just under 1,000 meters. Now, the fact that it was just under 1,000 meters means that our inaccuracies didn't matter in the end. Now here's where they actually sunk, but that's, actually we aren't as inaccurate as I thought we were. What happened is, after they got hit, they actually started turning away, and we're a little bit lucky that our last torpedo hit them, because it was all pretty quick shooting, but it turned away and our last torpedo hit them there after they had tried to get away. They got hit by a torpedo, they turned away from the torpedo to get away, and that's why they actually ended up changing their course over to here instead of following along their original course. So what I was going to point out is, if we look down here, it says that it was a Cimarron class tanker sunk, right? Well, what we had put it down as, let me get something here out of the way. What we had actually put it down as is this grosser tanker, right? Which on that is probably the closest one there is to what it actually is. But I want to pull up the information for the Cimarron class tanker right here. So if we look, it says that it has a length of 190, which this said 190 as well, so that's really close. But the mast height here is 29.9, which this is 27. Now that's important because you use the mast height to find the range, and then you use the range to find the angle on the bow. So if the mast height is off, then your range is off and your angle on the bow is off. So we ended up thinking it was actually closer, a sharper angle to us each time, because we thought it was that it was farther away than it was. Let's see, because we thought it had a shorter mast. So when we measured the distance, we came up thinking it was farther away than it actually was, and so then when we counted the things, then we were off. And then it also had right here a draft of 11.9. Now the Cimarron actually has a draft of 10.5, and I think I set that second torpedo to somewhere in the 10 range. I'll have to go back and look at the recording. But that's why it went under the bow, because I thought it had a deeper draft than it actually did. Now, that having been said, I actually knew it didn't, so that's why I set my first and last torpedo as high as I did, rather than going deeper, because I knew this information was a little bit wrong. But despite having 2 different numbers that were actually a little bit off, we still got a hit. We still got a sunk ship. We still sunk the ship. We still got a kill. But it was close enough just using the attack disc and the wrangle on the bow, or the range angle on the bow finder. I can't say that. Because as long as you're close, as long as you're not shooting super long shots, if you're shooting long shots, you've got to be a lot more accurate. But the inaccuracies end up not being such a big deal as long as you're close. So at this point, I think even the oil slick is gone because I've been talking for a long time. Nope, the oil slick's out there. Okay. Anyway, thanks for anybody that actually, if I post this, for anybody that actually stuck around long enough, and happy hunting.